Namaskar, welcome to DilSe Stories once again. We have with us today Jesal Pankaria. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, Pankania, yes.
Pankaria, sorry. Yeah. So, welcome to DilSe Stories. Could you kindly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, hi, my name is Jesal Pankania. I'm from the UK. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be part of this conversation and part of this community. I'm in the UK. You probably have heard of me as Ink Stains for Your Brain on social media. It's just my kind of creative outlet in life. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm Dr. Parag Bharadwaj. So, you are from the UK. Tell us a little bit about um, your family, when did they move to the UK, and a little bit about yourself in terms of your childhood, and
Yeah.
now your profession.
Yes, yes. Well, we can't really speak about these things without talking about the British Empire. So we'll start with that. And actually, it was my grandfather, both my grandfathers, maternal and paternal grandfathers, were taken from let's say, the west of India to the east of Africa. So they were in Kenya. And so they were there, they started a life there. My father, my mother were born in Kenya. And then when the British Empire started to fragment, should we say, then they had a choice of, do we go back to India? Do we stay in Kenya, or do we make our way to the UK, the promised land, shall we say? But actually, what was happening next to Kenya was Uganda, where there was genocide happening. So they essentially had to flee Kenya. So they moved to they landed in a place called Coventry, which is right in the middle of the UK. My dad was about 16, 17 maybe. My dad used to read a lot. And so he thought that when he came to England, everything would be paved with marble and gold. But actually came to this city called Coventry, which is near Birmingham. It's about 100 miles from north of London. So it's very industrial and post-war. It'd been flattened and then rebuilt very quickly. So there wasn't a lot of aesthetic building design. So he woke up, he always said he woke up that morning in a heavy depression because Kenya was so beautiful. And then fast forward to me being born then. So therefore, you can say I'm British, being born in Britain with Gujarati origin, shall we say? Yeah, that's
Great.
me.
So, thanks for summarizing it so well. Your name is not very common in India, right? So you mentioned it's from Gujarat. Is it also a Sindhi name?
So Sukumbar is our Sri Saratya Prajapati is our community. So the kind of, if we're going to talk about um, Varna rather than say using the word caste, if we say Varna, then our tradition is pottery. So we would make pots or ceramics, should we say? So that's our tradition. Both my grandparents were carpenters, so that was their niche. My father was a teacher, and then in a way, I'm actually a dentist, so we work with ceramic crowns. So in a way, maybe I've gone back into pottery on a very micro level because people don't make pots like they used to. Yeah.
Great. So tell us a little bit about another aspect of you, and that is poetry, right? And um, tell us about your name on Instagram. How did you come up with that name? It's very unique.
Okay. Yeah. So as a teenager, I really listened to American hip hop a lot. I was influenced a lot by 90s hip hop, the likes of The Roots, Nas, Biggie Smalls, Tupac, all these people, Common Sense. So I always was into hip hop. I had a good friend at school who was just obsessed with hip hop. So there was a culture when I was a teenager of breakdancing, DJing, graffiti, and I just found myself, I could easily write some poetic things down, and we used to grab a mic and we would just MC through the night. That was our level of kind of fun. and then we'd listen to it the next day, like, oh yeah, there were many mistakes, but there'd be a little bit, maybe 10, 15% of it was gold. So then I was always into poetry, art, that sort of thing. And then that's one side. And the other side, my parents always wanted me to have a sense of identity and culture from the Indian point of view. So it's like the Western and the Eastern coming together. So they always made me memorize Sanskrit poetry. That was something that my mum really wanted me to do. So the Brahma Samhita is one particular poem. And so I always wanted that for my children. And so that's where I kind of fused the two. So Ink Stains for Your Brain is actually one lyric that my friend, I'll kind of give him a shout out. His MC name at the time was Vibe 5000, because he used to say he's from the future. So he said, I leave indelible ink stains on the membrane of your brain. He said something. And when he said it, wow, I was like, I'm going to keep that one. So when I opened my Instagram, I didn't want it to be me. I thought if it's something creative, I'll call it Ink Stains for Your Brain, with the idea, because if I have that as the forefront, then I'm always going to keep writing, do some poetry. And then over the years, it just amalgamated to fusing Sanskrit poetry with hip hop. And that's, probably how you came across the account. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very unique and it's beautiful. And we will also, you know, get your partner in crime to join the interview in a few minutes.
Yeah,
And
sure, sure. Yeah, my
what a
daughter
pair.
will. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, do you still have what you penned down from like in the 90s?
Yeah. I mean, some of the lyrics are just still um, in my head. Some of them are good lyrics. Some of them are a little bit embarrassing, but yeah, they're still there. I still have my diaries where I've written a few things, and I've even recited one poem on TED, like on a TED talk, because that was something a little bit closer to me. Um, I had a friend who unfortunately passed away from an overdose, and my sister, being a psychotherapist, um, said, "Why don't you do some poetry to help you through the grief?" So I wrote a poem, and it just got out there. And then someone asked me to recite it on TEDx in my local city, and yeah, so like that's in my mind. I can, I've got that hopefully still there.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is I'm sure you've noticed an evolution, right, in your writings.
Yes, yes, that's an interesting question. Yeah, because as a teenager, it's about bravado. I'm the best in the room, or you're trying to show yourself, and I think you get to a certain age where you stop wanting to speak like that, and then yes, the evolution is something more with more depth. There's almost nothing to prove about yourself now. It's all about the creativity. Yeah, so there's definitely an evolution for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Any pattern that you've noticed apart from what you
Any
just shared
pattern?
about yeah, about you said when you're younger there's a lot more bravado, but now things probably a bit more toned down. But in the content, have you noticed any shift in the way you look at the world and life itself?
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, my art reflects that. My poetry reflects that. Um, yeah. I think as a teenager, you're trying to find your place, and then there's an element of, oh, what are we going to do with these raps? Because we got to a point where we would go out to bars and clubs, and if there was a DJ there, we would say, "Oh, could we MC?" And then he'd say, "Well, if an MC wants to MC, they normally should carry a mic." And so from then on, I kept a mic on me. So if I went to a DJ and said that, I'd pull out the mic. And then he said, well, this guy must be serious if he carries a mic around with him. So it's that bravado, and then you're there, and it's for the rush of things. But then I think, yeah, in my 20s, then, becoming a parent, then afterwards in my 30s, you start writing about things. And obviously, that poem that I wrote was about grief. I'd never written like that something so poignant. So yeah, it changes definitely.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And how was it? Because you're talking about the 90s, and most of us Indian kids are encouraged to go into academics, and here you would, trying to be an MC. How did just talk about that experience for yourself, and how um, just a glimpse of the conversations between you and your parents around
Yeah, yeah, sure. So my dad was a school teacher. He was a school teacher for a good 30 years, and he was in an inner city school. And he was quite a liberal guy. He was quite open, and he knew what the teenager experience was like. So he let us play music and all that sort of thing. And I'd buy albums, and then sometimes they'd have swearing in. So I wouldn't really play that in front of my dad, but secretly I'd turn it right up. And then we used to have tapes. Obviously, we had tapes then. So there would be like pirate radio stations that would play at maybe 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And obviously, there was an expectation of me to do well in my exam. So I had to do my revision. Have this radio station on. But when it was time to go to sleep, I'd leave it on, and then I'd just press record. And so the tape would at least go for 60 minutes. So in the morning, then on the way to school, I'd put it into my Walkman, and I'd listen to the hip hop on the way to school. But even then, the MCs back then, there's obviously some crass lyrics and things like that. But there were very conscious rappers as well that were talking about upliftment, doing better for yourself, surviving, finding utility in the world, finding beauty in the world. So that those were the MCs that I was drawn to. So yeah, I'd go to school, and then there were a few of us, and then we'd all swap tapes. So that was the experience of us as teenagers, yeah, listening to hip hop, and it was amazing because obviously there was British music, which was good in its own right, but it didn't really hit. But for some reason, that, especially for me, the East Coast hip hop of the '90s just really resonated with me because I felt that same struggle. Like I felt my parents' struggle and my grandparents as well. I could feel that, and wanted to emulate their lyrics, really do something with my life. Yeah.
Awesome. So I can just picture you walking to school, listening to music, and you're still maintaining that tradition. However, you have different company. It's not just you. You have
Yeah,
your daughter with you nowadays, right?
that's it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about your relationship, and how did you come up with this idea of, you know, I mean, I'm assuming it was a tradition, uh, that developed over time between the two of you, and very
Yeah.
thankful that you record them and you put them up. They're beautiful to listen to. Uh, so how did that come about?
Sure, sure. So it goes back to that same poem that I um, spoke about, the Brahma Samhita. It's like one of the oldest Sanskrit poems, and it was actually during COVID when all the schools got shut down and everything. Um, my wife and I thought, well, they need, while we've got this opportunity, let's really immerse them in some of this old poetry. And somehow there was a gentleman who they call him Mahashai, this is their teacher. Online, he called it a gurukul, an online gurukul, and they could plug in, and they would go on every day for half an hour, and they would just learn shlokas, like they'd learn this poetry. And so, if I'm honest, my wife and my son know the Sanskrit verses better than me and my daughter. I'm going to put it out there. My wife is a detail person, and also is my son, and so they've actually memorized the entire poem. And even to this day, my daughter and I, we're kind of not the detail people, but just to make it more interesting and maybe more memorable also, then I would play those hip hop um, beats, and I would just say, let's try and recite it on the way to school. So then we would recite it on the way to school. And I said, okay, I think that fits. I think that fits. And it just became something. And I said, why don't you record it? So she recorded it on her phone, and then I just thought, let me put it on Instagram. Literally, if you go back and see them, there's a progression, because the first one is her just holding the phone, and we're just reciting, and then we got some blue tack That's what we call it in the UK. I don't know what you call it in America, but just kind of tacked the phone to the side. So then our cars now become a studio. So we just kept recording, and that was the impetus to learn the next verse and then learn the next verse like that. And
So
so, yeah, it
how
just,
long is the whole Brahma Samhita? How long is it?
I think it's roughly 50 odd verses. There's 50 odd verses, but that is actually only one chapter of many, and people don't know how many chapters there are. So it was actually a poem that was excavated about 500 years ago from a old South Indian temple, and it's only one chapter of many. But it's just got so many. The reason why I love Brahma Samhita, it's just got so many aphorisms, and this Sanskrit word sutra. I mean, you're a doctor, I'm a surgeon as well. This word suture, like when we stitch things. But if we think about it the other way, if we undo the stitches, we can open something up. So these sutras are like that, where maybe two or maybe four lines of a poem hold so much depth. So my wife and I's thinking was that if we can just give them this poetry, the same way my mother got me to memorize the poems, later on in life, if you look at these meanings, you can unlock such depth in life. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Instagram, is like putting some titles to be. Is it okay if I say one line, one of the Sanskrit lines?
Of course.
So one, it is my favorite one. It says, "Sattva parasattvam vishuddha sattvam." So sattva is in there three times. So sattva means reality or truth or eternality. And the line before that is Maya hiyasya jagadanta satani sute. So it's like, to get out of Maya, to get out of illusion, we have to find what is real, more real, and most real. So when I'm putting the poems out there, it's just so universal. I just find the poetry so universal. So I'm just trying to maybe just give a little droplet here and there. And if I was doing it on my own, I think people would say, "Who's this sad old man trying to be an MC?" But actually, I think the fact that it's my daughter and myself, and it's something quite endearing, people just want more of it. So I just keep doing it, or we keep doing it.
Yeah, that's amazing that you have her accompany you and you both, as a father-daughter relationship that I think one gets to see, which is amazing. So yeah, I find it fascinating from that relationship point of view. And now that
Yeah.
you've gone a little bit more into detail, I mean, you have one of the oldest poems from India that you've carried all the way to the UK, and it's amazing that you're able to do that, right? And you're able to share it uh, with the audience around the world, like myself. Now, so you write poetry. You know my favorite lines that you've written, uh, which hopefully we'll get for you to sing with your daughter. But how did you come up with? Actually, let me reframe my question. You write something that as a poem, right? How does it transition into something that sounds like a song?
Mm. Yeah. I think so. I'll go back to in my teenage years. What we do, my friend had a vinyl, and he would put the vinyl on, and he would just put it on repeat. It just kept going round and round. We just keep rewinding, literally for 3 4 hours. So when we're writing with the beat in mind. So where prose you can just write free writing, whereas this is like we're writing, and there's a lot of, for me anyway, there's a lot of editing going on, and so just to make maybe 8 or 16 bars might take 2 hours. But just like what poetry is, it's like the juice, right? You just squeeze the squeeze the mango and get the juice out. So rather than just writing what we're thinking, we're writing it in a way that is, you know, suspenseful, as Eminem says. Write something suspenseful, inceptive, but also then receptive as well. Which is why that I think those 4 lines, I think it resonated with yourself as well. Giving bliss a chance. Who wouldn't want to give bliss a chance? Saying it in a nice receptive way, in a non-preachy way, in a non, you know, you must do this, you should do this. It's like, okay, it's an invite. Maybe we could make our day a bit more blissful, right? So yeah, it's like an invitation. So the poet, the poets over the ages have invited us to evolve somehow. So yeah, that's what it's an invitation.
Sorry,
Oh,
I was saying it's very
sure.
nice, and it's those are my favorite lines. I actually wrote them down and I have them up in my office. Yeah, because it's a choice
Yeah,
you get to make, um, and I think where you're coming from, you just got to give it a chance, right?
that's it. You got to give it a
So,
chance.
can we get to meet the star of the
Yeah,
show?
yeah, sure, sure. So my daughter Rohini, I've just texted her because I said be on standby. We'll have a little chat and then you come in. So hopefully she has her phone on her and she's. Oh, here she is. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Come. Shut
Welcome.
that door. There you
Hello.
go. This is Rohini.
Hi, Rohini. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. So, we were just talking about you behind your back, and we were saying how wonderful you are when you sing with your father, and what a great relationship you have with him, right? So, do you uh, tell us a little bit about your relationship with your father? What's your favorite activity with him? What do you like to do?
Um, well, I like to on the weekends mostly because we're both really busy on the weekdays. On the weekends, we like to catch up on watching like The Apprentice and like Gladiators, and we also like dancing in the kitchen together whilst making food, and definitely rapping in the car on the way to school.
Right. So, all the activities that you described, which one is your favorite?
Hmm. Probably, it would probably be watching the TV with him because we both have like the same personality. So when we're
Very
watching
nice.
it, we both understand each other.
Very nice.
We have Apprentice. Like in the USA, you have Apprentice. I think Donald Trump would be the
Yeah,
person.
he was.
In the UK,
Yeah.
it's Lord Sugar, Alan Sugar.
Okay.
So we're there. We oh no, they made a mistake, or who's going to get fired, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we like watching Apprentice. Yeah.
Mm.
That's awesome. So, Rohini, do you have a favorite hobby?
I have multiple favorite hobbies. Um, my favorite one would be dance and acting, but I do obviously dance, acting, trampolining. Um, I like to do art as well, like drawing, painting, sketching, all of this.
That's a lot.
But my favourite would definitely be dancing
Mm.
and acting.
Yeah. And what do you want to become? I'll ask the typical Indian question, right? What do you want to do when you grow up?
Um, I want to be an actor because when I'm watching these shows, I'm always like, oh, I want to be up there doing that same thing. But I also want to try and become a detective because it sounds like such a cool job.
Yeah, you'll be a very
Actually, that is one
well-rounded.
thing. That is one thing that we watch also
Mm.
is detective programs. There's a Poirot. Poirot is a detective, Agatha Christie, right?
Mhm.
So we're even watching the old ones from the 90s, because then we're trying to work out who is it, who's the criminal or who's the murderer,
Yeah,
right? We like stuff like that, yeah. So
It sounds like you and your dad make a great team.
we do.
So,
Definitely.
when you record your singing on the way to school, do you
Mhm.
practice it a few times before you do the recording, or do you record it each time you sing and then you pick out the best
We
version that you like?
probably, when we obviously do the Sanskrit, we have to practice the one we're doing. like just to remind ourselves. And then we'll just put the track on in the car. We'll probably do it like 3 to 5 times without the recording, and then we'll probably do it another 5 times with the recording, and out of them we'll choose the best one. That's how we do it.
You sing very well. Have you considered pursuing singing as a profession when you get older?
No.
All right.
She
So
does good.
I'm sorry.
She does good monologues. So she's because she really likes acting, right?
Yeah.
So
Like
as part of her,
at my school, we obviously do acting and dancing. It's like a performing arts school. So on some days, we have this whole show after school where if you're doing a solo or duet, you can either do acting, singing, or piano. But I chose acting, and so I do it by myself. I don't do it as a duet, I do it by myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I've heard monologues can be tough, right? What is the longest monologue you've done?
Probably the one I've just done, because I'm in grade 3 now, which is the longest one. It's like a page and a little bit. So I have to learn all the lines for that. But definitely at the moment, what I'm doing is the longest one I've done so far. You
must have a great memory.
I'm quite shocked at how much she memorizes, right?
Yeah.
It's
I think it's just that the actions go with the words. That's what I say to myself when I'm practicing.
Well, you figured out a way that works for you. That's very nice. So I have a request for you. Would you mind singing those 4 lines with your dad?
Yeah.
The ones that I've requested in the past?
We can go for it, yeah.
So I'm going to go on mute and then you take it from there before we wind up.
Go from there. Yeah. We're just going to freestyle. Should we do it slow or fast or a bit of both?
Bit of both.
Bit of both.
Start
with slow. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Every word is a song, every step is a dance, every day could be bliss if you give it a chance. Every word is a song, every step is a dance, every day could be bliss
if you give it a chance.
Every word is a song, every step is a dance, every day could be bliss if you give it a chance. Every word is a song,
every step
is a dance,
every day
could be bliss
if you just
give it a chance.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you worked on this because you've got like variations, right?
Yeah.
So very nicely done. So have you thought of like adding beats to this at some point? Music in the background?
So I think the people, when I say the people, I mean literally the people are willing this into manifesting somehow. So we have actually purchased a few beats, and we've got a singer who has recorded some singing, and we've got another singer who's going to overlay some. So we actually are about 75% through making a full kind of track for the Ayodhya Vasi Ram one, and we also half recorded one Brahma Samhita version. So hopefully we get it out there, and it's literally because the people have demanded it. No other reason. We just want to please people for
I can see why.
that we...
So looking forward to seeing that when it's released, and we'll share a link to your Instagram account. And Rohini, are you going to be singing as well?
Well, on the track?
We'll have to see. It will be a surprise.
You're going to leave it as a mystery, right?
She has to be. Otherwise it's just this old man trying to be 15 again.
No, but I think you should have a combo run at it somewhere in the song,
Yeah.
Because I think that's what people relate to most. So that's just my 2 cents. I can't wait to see what you come up with, and with that we'll wind up the interview.
Sure. Thank you so much.
And I hope we can interview again when it's released.
Yes. That'll be great. Yeah.
Is that a promise, Rohini?
Yes. Pinky promise.
All right. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.